German heavy tanks often embody might and strength. The E75TS, the new German premium Tier VIII tank, looks the part. The iconic shape, rounded turret and screens on the side create an inexplicable combination of precision, style, and strong armor. This brawler looks like the ideal German heavy, beautiful, formidable, and with an exhaust pipe on the rear. Maximum velour, maximum protection. But is that really so? The E75TS is an imposing vehicle. It's big, it's grey, and 3 E25s can easily fit inside it. With such specs, it must have as much armour as a mouse. Let's take it for a test drive. We'll start out by checking the hull sides. At first glance, it can withstand any hit. However, the cold, hard numbers say different. 80mm of armour won't allow the vehicle to block reliably. In such cases, one's best hope is a ricochet. However, to do this, the tank's side must be positioned at an extremely sharp angle. The 5mm side screen doesn't provide much help, but it can still protect the tank from stray heat shells. Things get more interesting when we proceed to the frontal armour. The effective armour of the lower glacis plate, when struck head-on, is 174mm thick, while the upper plate is 256mm. If the hull is at an angle, the effective armour increases even more and can bounce standard shells from vehicles of the same tier. However, such positioning opens up the vulnerable side of the hull. This leads us to a harsh conclusion regarding the armour of the E75TS. But what if we get creative and look at its armour from a different perspective? Driving up a hill, we increase the effective armour to 300mm while keeping the hull side safe. Much better already, yet it only makes sense if the turret is great. Well, the gun mantlet makes a good impression. The effective armour of the turret's front is like this. Opponents of the same tier will find it hard to penetrate. The bad news is that one can target the commander's cupola or the balls on the sides. As a result, compared to other Tier VIII heavies, both experience and statistics show that the E75TS is right between "I've got the armour" and "close range is a no-go." The tank has armour and performs well if you use the terrain to your advantage and hide the hull from enemy fire. Nevertheless, the turret's weak spots will remain an issue. However, we all know that some heavy tanks are not quite heavy in fact. That means we need to check another parameter: vehicle dynamics. This tank has a top speed of 45 km/h. Its specific power is 16 horsepower per ton. The tank drives forward very fast, but turns very lethargically. Playing the E75TS as a medium tank won't be possible. At the same time, it shares some similarities with mediums. Its top reverse speed is 18 km/h. If its less armoured counterparts use their good reverse speed to quickly hide after firing a shot, this German can simply make it hard for opponents to take aim at weak spots. This is nice. As a result, we have these symbolic graphs of protection and mobility. Add a lack of concealment due to its huge size to the formula, and the conclusion is here: it is quite clear that nothing is clear. Thankfully, this equation has one more variable that will help identify the tank: its gun. And that's where things get interesting. Damage per shot is 360 hit points. Reloading takes about 11 seconds, but with a bit of tuning, it drops to 9 seconds, resulting in a respectable damage per minute. Aiming time and accuracy are both quite good. The gun is well stabilized and the shells have nice velocity. Even penetration is good. No, that's not right. The penetration of the standard shell is good. The penetration of the special shell is amazing, 282mm. The sum of these factors is very attractive. None of the gun's parameters are disappointing. It may be strange, but it's a fact. Wherever one looks, the tank's gun is either good or pretty darn good. Firing in the E75TS is really a pleasure, especially if you add a gun depression angle of -8 degrees, a decent turret, a good reverse speed, and a hill. The only thing that's left unclear is the role of the E75TS in battle. Classic heavies arrive and do battle, fight over ridges, carry out side-scrapping and deal damage. Classic mediums use their maneuverability to constantly hit and run opponents from various directions, firing from the flanks and quickly hiding. The E75TS is different. With these stats, this tank is neither a heavy nor a medium, or is it? Let's take a look at two vehicles. They both represent the E-series, the E75 and the E50. Each has a set of moves they can employ in combat, and if we check which of these moves the E75TS can use, the result is a hybrid tank. Yes, this big guy will never be as heavy as the E75, nor will it perform like the medium E50. But it can fulfill both roles, and which role it should play at a given moment depends on the opposition. Now we take the most popular Tier VIII heavy tank, the IS-3, and let's try to find a way to take it down with the E75TS. The first tactic that comes to mind is to get up close and personal, but that's not an option. Going into short-range combat in this vehicle is as sound as dancing naked in a serpentarium. In this case, any opponent will easily hit your rangefinders. Let's try to increase the distance. For instance, up to 150 meters. Now aiming at the balls and commander's cupola becomes much harder. Only stray shots will hit them. At 200 meters, this becomes even more apparent. Now the turret of the E75TS doesn't yield. The correlation is clear. The greater the distance, the harder it is for opponents to hit the vulnerable areas of this German. At a distance of 250 meters, even the most accurate Tier IX tanks can't penetrate the armor consistently. Meanwhile, the E75TS still can return fire quite effectively. Its gun delivers accurate shots at the weak spots of many opponents who will make mistakes and expose their pike nose or sprocket. Hence, the conclusion is plain to see. A combination of the right distance and a good position will help you emerge victorious from many firefights. And if something veers off course, the tank has enough speed to reposition itself. Always keep this in mind. However, playing this vehicle is not as monotonous as it may seem. At the start of the battle, the German can use its speed to reach its position first and fire at opponents who are still getting into position. Then there are a number of options. Which vehicles do we face in this area? Are they heavily armoured Tier 9s and 10s? The E75TS can provide fire support. Let those with better armour lead the charge, while you maintain your position, track the time and shoot when possible. The gun is good enough to hit and penetrate. The armour can block some shots, and the tank is dynamic enough to do everything quite quickly. If things get hairy, the E75TS can simply drive and flank the big guys. It has enough speed to do that. If your tank is needed on another flank to push forward, you can get there and turn the tide of battle. Why lose hit points fighting heavies if one can deal damage with medium tanks? And if the E75TS climbs to the top of the team roster, it can play as a genuine, robust assault vehicle. The way to play the E75TS depends on the situation. Sometimes it can act aggressively, while at other times it should restrain its impulse to attack. The player's goal is to understand which of the options is preferable at a given moment. Try to combine playing at medium and short distances. Try to survive using the tank's armor and pool of hit points. Try to affect the course of the battle late in the game using its dynamics and gun. Try to think all the time. And before the battle starts, try to look inside the barrel. Because why not? Good luck on the battlefield.